Thanksgiving, a holiday of warmth, family, and gratitude. You know the scene: turkey in the oven, football drowning out in the background, kids running around laughing. For most of us, it's the most comforting day of the year. But in 2009, one family in Florida, their Thanksgiving turned into something no one could ever imagine. People called it the Jupiter Thanksgiving Massacre. It all comes back to one man. Paul Merhige, a guy who once seemed like he had potential, but whose life went so far off track that it ended in one of the most haunting family tragedies you'll ever hear about. So here is how it happened. On November 26, 2009, Jim and Merle Sitton opened their Jupiter home to 16 family members and friends. Their 6-year-old daughter, Michaela, was the joy of the night. Her singing songs, trilling around to practice for the Nutcracker, and hanging up little handwritten thankful cards on a string in the living room. It was the perfect family holiday. Merle's parents were there, her cousins Carla and Lisa, their twins, just 33, and Lisa's husband Patrick. Lisa was even pregnant with their very first child. Then there was Paul, 35-year-old, kind of an odd one out. He had a history of violent outbursts, even threatened his sisters before, and get this, actually confided into Lisa that she had a bad feeling that night. She literally said, "I hope he doesn't come and kill us all tonight." Can you imagine hearing that just before Thanksgiving dinner? Paul did show up late, kept quiet, barely touched his plate. He just sat there, withdrawn for hours, like he was in the room but not really there. And then he got up, walked out of the house. No one thought much of it, but when he came back, he was carrying a gun. Police later described it plainly. He began shooting the victims without warning. First, he turned on Carla and Lisa, then their Aunt Ramon. Within moments, Lisa's husband Patrick was shot. And then, this is the part that's just devastating. Paul walked upstairs straight to where Michaela was sleeping. She never saw it coming, and she never woke up. By the time it was over, 4 lives were gone. Lisa, who was pregnant, her twin, Carla, their aunt, Ramon, and the 6-year-old Michaela. Paul fled in his blue Toyota Camry. Imagine the chaos. The survivors running to the neighbor's house, banging on the doors, begging for help. When police arrived, even the seasoned officers said they were shaken. A huge manhunt followed. The FBI, the U.S. Marshals, everyone was looking for him. His face even showed up on America's Most Wanted. They put up a $100,000 reward on his head. And for 38 days, he had managed to disappear. He shaved his head, switched license plates, paid cash to hide in a motel room in Florida Keys, but eventually the motel owner recognized him from the TV. They called it in, and on January 2nd, 2010, the U.S. Marshals stormed into his room. Just like that, he was caught.
18 years of utter torment.
What do you mean by that?
I've had chronic medical problems, mental problems. It's been a nightmare. I didn't even know what I was doing.
Paul was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. At first, the state wanted the death penalty, but in 2011, he took a plea deal. 7 life sentences, no parole, no appeal. Court that day, absolutely raw. Jim Sitton, Michaela's dad, dropped to his knees in front of the judge, clutching a lock of her hair, begging them not to take the deal. He said, "If the death penalty isn't for this man, who is it for?" Merle, Michaela's mom, held up her daughter's photo and said she'd never forget seeing her baby on the stretcher. And Patrick, Lisa's husband, who had survived being shot, he called Paul a fat, lazy failure. Harsh words, but you can feel the bitterness. Even so, he'd agreed to the plea deal, because dragging things out for decades would have meant reopening wounds over and over and over again. Even Paul's parents. You can imagine what they must have felt like. They wrote a letter to the court, caught between mourning their daughters and still trying to support their son, the same son who had killed them. The judge looked at Paul and told him flatly, "You'll never see the light of day." Life after Thanksgiving for Jim and Merle, it was unbearable. Jim once said, after the murders, all the joy and laughter and little girls' giggles left us cold, empty house. But here's the thing where the story takes a turn you would not expect. Life crept back in. In 2012, Merle gave birth to Natalia Grace. 2 years later, they welcomed Rayla. Jim remembers hearing Merle singing Amazing Grace softly to their baby girl, and he said in that moment, he realized they're going to be all right and they will make it. Now, Jim and Merle, they stayed in the same home, believe it or not. For them, it holds more good memories of Michaela than bad ones. Her room is still almost the same as it was. Her books and clothes are now shared with her sisters. Merle homeschools her girls just like she did Michaela, and she says every day is another reminder of God's grace. And through the foundation, they honor Michaela's love for dance and music, making sure her little light continues to shine. The Jupiter Thanksgiving Massacre is a chilling reminder of what unsolved anger and untreated illness can lead to. Now I know what you're thinking. A lot of criminals say they have mental illness, and most of them really don't. Sometimes history doesn't just repeat itself, it echoes. And when those echoes come from within a single family, the weight of tragedy becomes almost impossible to comprehend. Salwa Abrams was an aunt on her father's side of the family. By the early 1970s, she was living what appeared to be outside an ordinary life, but beneath the surface was struggling turmoil that those around her didn't fully see. In 1973, however, tragedy struck. Salwa murdered her ex-husband and her 2 children, and then taking her life. The case left investigators and the community shaken. At the time, it was viewed as an isolated family tragedy, devastating as it is, but confined to one household. It's important not to sensationalize acts of violence. Instead, it's a chance to reflect on the importance of recognizing warning signs, emotional distress, isolation, and unresolved conflict. When support systems fail or go unrecognized, the consequences can be heartbreaking. While the circumstances of the 2 events were very different, they both underscore a sobering truth. Mental illness struggles, family breakdowns, and unaddressed crises can escalate to unimaginable outcomes. That's why community awareness, support system, and accessible resources are so crucial. Salwa is not just a footnote of the family history. It's a reminder of how far the ripples of tragedy can spread across generations. By looking at these stories with care and compassion, we honor the lives lost while also shining a light on what could have been done differently in the future, recognizing warning signs, supporting those in pain, and never forgetting that behind every case are real people, real families, and real heartbreak. 17 people came together to give thanks that night. By the end, 4 of them were gone, and a family was forever changed. And yet, through all the pain, Jim and Muriel show us healing. However imperfect and messy it may be, it is still possible that even in the darkest hours, faith and resilience can bring light back into a broken home. This Thanksgiving, as we gather around our own tables, may we remember not only the blessings right in front of us, but also how easily broken life can get lost, and importance of compassion. It's about how much kindness and grace it takes to keep living. And you know, as heartbreaking as it all is, Jim and Muriel didn't let Michaela's story end there. They started the Michaela Joy Sitten Foundation, named after their little girl who loved to dance and sing. The foundation helps other children discover music and arts, the very things that made Michaela light up every room she was in. We go over these cases not just to remember the tragedy, but also to remind one another of the importance of compassion and forgiveness is, and how precious every moment really is with family and friends, because it could be gone in an instant. Now, if you find these true crime cases covered with care and respect, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. When darkness falls, we care, so please stay aware. The next case is already calling us, so bye for now.